Here's pop culture in the eyes of 3 divorce attorneys, and what's taken over the internet by storm is what looks like, what, Garrett, an affair that got caught on tape at a Coldplay concert? Is this what happened here? 3 divorce attorneys in the divorce roundtable give you our opinion on what really behind the scenes. And actually, I got a comment. Lawyer be like Exhibit A, can I show YouTube your honor? In your career in the last 17 to 20 years, have you ever had to show an exhibit on an affair?
No. The only time that affairs come into play is if there's something called dissipation, which is where they've spent money on the person they're having an affair with. Generally, it's something more like this that's just salacious. As far as the court's considered, it's not relevant to the divorce.
Florida, we're still talking a no-fault state,
right.
Which means, that in the state of Florida, no fault. Doesn't matter if we're talking about a reason for divorce, alcohol, drug abuse, substance abuse, and or extramarital affairs. At the end of the day, the only standard is the marriage broken. Is it irretrievably broken, meaning beyond repair? But you made a good point off air in terms of dissipation, and this is where I think some of these comments are kind of funny, but actually tie back to a legal principle.
Yeah, I actually said dissipation of assets, which means that, if, for example, we find out that this concert was part of like a $5,000, $10,000 trip to Boston, and they rented a hotel room, and they went out to all these fancy dinners, and they spent thousands of dollars. The wife could potentially claw back half of that money to be like, hey, that was my money that you just spent on something that was not for the marriage or not part of a regular course of life. This was like a waste of my money to spend it on this situation.
The thing that I'm looking at actually also is, while it's funny and it's laughable, what we always do as divorce practitioners, it's not funny if there's kids involved.
Correct.
And this is hitting the internet, and if there are minor children, I mean, even older children, this would hurt, but minor children, in my experience in the last 20 years, this sets the tone for the divorce. And although the no-fault state doesn't matter, hey, I can have as many affairs as I want, we all know that in the beginning of divorce, much easier if you're planning the work and working the plan, as opposed to, hey, I've just inherited a bomb that went off, fires are out of control, and now somebody might be trying to move maybe with a little retribution,
right,
and saying, hey, I don't care, meaning it makes the divorce that much tougher to get your hands around at first when hostilities are high.
It does. Right now, taking that case, she removed her married name from social media yesterday. She's embarrassed. She's likely upset. She's likely looking for potentially removal from the situation, but also maybe revenge a little bit. And so at the front of a case, when that's the motivating factor, it's going to be difficult to wrap your hands around, how do we get this to the finish line, and what is the best way for this family to get to the finish line?
Start talking about public relations, issuing statements.
Well, yeah, that, and a very wise old family law attorney told me had a theory of rejectors and rejectees. And if you get into that situation where one person doesn't want it or they've been wronged, they're going to want their pound of flesh. In the divorce case, they're going to want to go after the other person more intensely than if it was just like, hey, we've come to the agreement that we're not getting along anymore, this is over, versus a reject or rejectee situation where it just adds
and very
fire
tough as a divorce practitioner, as the lawyer, to try to tell your client that the affair itself is not going to matter.
Right.
And the affair itself is not evidence that the court's going to weigh, but really focusing on the bigger issues, whether it's children, equitable distribution, which the comment just are dropping everywhere. Hope you clean him out, girl. I hope his wife bleeds him dry. I just felt my pockets get fatter from the divorce. But the reality is that's preordained in the state of Florida, meaning your equitable rights is equitable distribution based on the presumption of equity or 50-50. So even though it feels good to say that, hey, we're going to bleed him dry, we're going to drag him out, that's really not the law. That's really not what a good divorce lawyer is going to do. A divorce lawyer is going to try to take the emotions aside and say, hey, yeah, if it is a high net worth case like we deal with all the time, then we're going to be valuing assets, but we're not moving for retribution.
Right, exactly. And then one of the things that you have to look at, because the timeline matters, what happens as a result of this to his career? Are there financial changes? That's going to be moving quickly. And so what do? Is there decisions that your client, if you're representing the wife, needs to make now before some of the repercussions come, or do we wait and let that settle down? Those are the kind of analyses that you have to sit down with your client and talk about. Look, this in a year may settle down and we may go back to status quo, or he may leave that company.
Right.
If so, we're talking about a different financial picture.
That's right. What's the impact on the divorce? And most importantly, what's the impact on the client? If this guy gets fired, is that alimony gone? Or is it their net worth was so big it's not an alimony case? Is he going to lose shares? Is he going to lose value? Is there a forfeiture clause in his contract? Because at the end of the day, gee, it's going to be a business for the wife. It's a business decision. And this conduct, even though say, hey, payday for the wife, can have some serious implications.
Right.
Yeah, and I just had another thought. We know no false state and all that, but does the affair alone, if they did have minor children, would the affair alone affect time sharing in and of itself, or would you need something more that this person is a bad influence on the kids, or this guy's doing something that he shouldn't be doing, so he should have less time? Well, how does that factor in? So it's no fault, but how could it affect?
A great point,
time
and that's
sharing?
thinking outside of the law too, to say, hey, we know the law in the state of Florida says, hey, it's going to be a 50-50 time sharing schedule, right? And dad, let's say he says, hey, I don't care about the fair, I still want my 50-50. Good luck telling that to a 13, a 14, a 15-year-old teenager who has just seen your face plastered all over social media. Her friends are embarrassed. She's pissed at what her dad has done, just talking hypotheticals. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to say, hey, I want my 50-50, and it's another thing to say for a teenage child, yeah, like I'm just going to start running over because it always happens. They start taking sides. So as a divorce practitioner, you get thrown all these issues, some that don't deal with the law and some that are more dealing with life. Now here's one for Ashley as our prenuptial specialist in the firm. Comment number 3 right out of the bang is, I hope he has a prenup. Unbelievable. But talk to me a second, actually, for the people with social media. Sometimes, even in the prenup world, if there's some kind of bad deed or bad character, there can be a clause. Talk to me about, or to the folks at home, how prenups are written when they have an affair clause in them.
Some do have what's called an infidelity clause. Now, that's subjective. What's considered infidelity? We have a picture, we have his arms around her. I think we can all make a deductive assumption on what's going on, but is that a breach of the clause? And sometimes the clauses are in depth enough that they say what constitutes infidelity. You can have some where they go into, if somebody watches certain materials, pornographic materials, that could be considered infidelity. You have somewhere if it is a romantic relationship, how do you prove what's a romantic relationship? So it depends on the clause. It depends on how it's written. A broad clause would likely apply here, but then you get into, is he going to stipulate that was infidelity? So we don't get down that rabbit hole.
Splitting bucks, it's not going to be stipulated to nothing. Plus, on prenups, usually has conditions with how long the marriages goes. You still are going to be dividing assets, or if there's support needs, depending on money. So it's not as easy as just throwing out, hope he has a prenup, even though, I'd be starting there for sure if I was an attorney, and if so, trying to review it.
And then that would not apply to the children. The prenuptial agreements cannot handle child support. They can't handle time sharing. So those elements are going to be part of the case if there's minor children anyways.
Now, big picture, G, if you're her, are you lawyering up immediately? Are you calling the best defense attorney in town? The actual wife?
Yeah, I mean, well, we don't know the inside of what her mind is. Everyone else is blowing up mad about it. Maybe she already knew about this.
This could have been over forever.
Exactly. Maybe she doesn't care. Maybe she's got something going on. Who knows what their relationship is inside of their personal,
how many times,
private homes.
Yeah, how many times in divorce cases have we handled things where other people would have thought they were crazy, but it was already in motion and lawyers were already behind the scenes. Now, obviously, I would have liked to seen this, I think, any good divorce attorney go a different way, where, hey, we're doing it quietly, there's a divorce behind the scenes, there's not this type of drama.
But I think, like you said, if she removed the last name from her social media and stuff, I think we can deduct that she is pretty upset about this. And I think you figure out who the top attorneys are in your town, and you start setting up some appointments and some interviews.
I think everybody better lawyer up. I think this one better lawyer up. For witness statements, media coming after her. He's obviously better be lawyering up. He's going to need several different lawyers, one from the corporate standpoint and employment. Better get himself an employment attorney ASAP if he's not calling the shots over there. His divorce attorney. And then the other thing that I thought about, too, was when this comment says soon-to-be rich ex-wife. Well,
she's already rich, probably.
Right.
In the background of this is where the wealth, I would think, is probably where maybe social media is thinking, hey, alimony, big numbers. Probably not that, right? It's probably going to be in the equitable distribution.
Correct.
Seems like the biggest asset is going to be what's their asset basis, what are the homes, what are the investments, and or businesses. So what this guy may have also done, and it happens all the time in our cases, which is a business is running just fine and smooth, and then the business gets hit with divorce. And what do I mean by that? Let's say this guy has shares in a company or let's say he's a partner, a 50-50 owner,
Right.
or let's say there's 3 other partners. Well, in the state of Florida, 50% of what he owns of that company is his wife's. So where do we go from there, right? Now you're
Right.
talking about right off the bat, we're valuing things, right? Now we're talking about the forensics getting involved. Now this guy has just invited to whatever company he owns a forensic, audits, P&L statements, bank accounts, the whole 9 yards starts getting up. I know a lot of clients we face that says, hey, look, how far is this going to go?
Right. Well, the first thing you look at is this a publicly traded company? If it is, stock price, likely immediate hit, how long that lasts. If it rebounds, got to look at that. But there's some decisions to be made very early on getting your hands around what's involved in this case. So those are things to take into account.
That's what I was thinking too. Like if he has contracts with other companies or people and they start canceling them and stuff, that could devalue things and change.
Yeah,
the course.
it stinks sometimes for the other spouse because the bad conduct can actually devalue the base of the asset.
Right.
It's
And
like
that's
kill
like
the golden goose analysis.
There you
that
go.
We sometimes have to make.
She almost sometimes might have to say, hey, we got to get a loan to go along through the divorce so we don't kill the golden goose, because at the
Right.
end of the day, this guy's never really going to say sorry. He's going to say sorry with money. So from the business standpoint, get as much as you can, but it comes with strategy, right? Don't make it worse. Don't attack to devalue a base. Now, if it's a
Right.
private company, his partners are going to be livid. They're going to be saying, hey, man, if her interest, let's say, is $12.5 million out of his $25 million share or whatever, then the problem becomes, I don't know a whole lot of people that are liquid that can stroke checks for 12.5. And that's what private companies
Correct.
face, is how are we going to pay her?
Right.
How do we pay her off? And so all of a sudden, this old boy's going to be having some serious conversations with other partners in the business.
Kind of a non-legal question, but do you think if they don't react when the camera comes on them and they just wave or something and then it pans away that this doesn't happen?
I think nobody finds out.
Yeah.
I think
You have
that
to really
I think
know.
that's what brought the attention to it. You've got the lead singer of Coldplay joking about it.
How about social media? When we started our careers, none of this was out there.
Right.
Can you imagine the stuff that we've seen that was going on that was not recorded,
Right,
that was not on
exactly.
YouTube, that was not on IG, that was not on Talk Now's divorce attorneys? All divorce attorneys and their teams immediately go to, who are we dealing with?
Right.
Go to the Facebook account, go to the LinkedIn, go to IG. What is out there that may
Right.
lead to different pieces here?
Yeah, technology's changed divorce in a lot of ways. Like if somebody doesn't like what someone's doing in the house, they pull out their phone or start recording them now. We never used to have
Life
that.
360,
So,
where they're tracking people
Yeah.
and they're having whereabouts, investigators knowing exactly. It's
Yeah.
a
text messages are
This is a
killer sometimes.
classic example, but at the end of the day, my heart bleeds. I hope that the kids are not impacted if there are any, because it's easy for everybody to comment, but to wreck a household,
Right.
I don't care what anybody says, it can take forever to heal from that kind of stuff.
You know, it's sad.
What else are we talking about with the Coldplay drama, man?
So we're going to see. I have a feeling he steps down. That's going to be an interesting next steps. This simple act
this is
may.
the HR director, no? Or who?
Yeah,
is it?
chief
Yeah, I
people,
thought
chief
something
people
like that,
officer.
right?
Chief people officer. So if there's a clause inside the company,
Yep.
and that's from the divorce aspect that we have to deal with. So divorce is so much different, right? So criminal defense, you're dealing with, did you commit this crime? You're working with a prosecution. Divorce attorneys, we're dealing with everything. We're dealing with these people's social lives. We're
Right.
dealing with the law. We're dealing with contracts. We're dealing with equitable distribution, children issues. Now the divorce lawyer is going to have to be working with some kind of employment or contract lawyer to say, hey, look, is this guy stepping away? Is he going to get fired? What does it mean financially? Because it's going to impact potentially our client.
Right.
Yeah, and if that's your HR director that's doing that, who knows what else might be going on at that company?
Get ready
What
for
other stories we're gonna
investigation
hear
time.
of
Everybody's
people-
cleaning in the house. There's no way a publicly traded company is going to sit on this. This guy is
Correct.
done. There's problems. And then now the divorce lawyer for his wife is like trying to pick up the pieces, trying to keep the eyes on money, making sure no
Right.
other money's moving, making sure they're secured,
Correct.
making sure that, God forbid, if he has a retirement or something that's connected that could be given up as a result
You
of
might be having
misconduct.
a rush to file, to get a data filing.
Yeah, and to control the narrative
Evaluation.
from her point of
Right.
view. Earlier, the
100%.
PR relations and everything like that, and the public view. So
Right.
yeah.
One screw up is enough to destabilize the world. Unbelievable.
Yeah, sure. That's
a-
the only time it's happened
At the end of the day,
for
Right.
them.
that's a divorce
That's it.
roundtable. At the end of the day, I'm Rob Sparks. This is Garrett Riley, and this is Ashley Taylor, and this is the divorce roundtable with the news of the day. What appears to be the viral video of the Coldplay concert affair. Unbelievable.